Welcome to the Why Not podcast with me, Chrissy Hawkins. In a world where everybody asks you why, I'm here to ask why not. So sit back and relax or walk and listen and join me on this journey as we try to answer this never-ending question. What makes people say, why not? Hi guys, welcome back to Why Not. Today I am joined with a guest. I'm delighted to bring to you Kimberly Dunn. So she is the owner of Idlewild Horsemanship and Mindset Coaching. Yes, I got that in one. I'm delighted with myself. But firstly, I just want to say welcome to the podcast, Kimberly. How are you?
Oh, thank you for having me on. I'm great, thank you. I'm excited to be here and excited to chat with you today.
Oh, I'm delighted to have you. So firstly, can you tell everybody who you are and what do you do?
Yeah, so I won't go through the whole name and business name again, but my name's Kim, and I am a horsemanship and mindset coach. So what I specialize in particular is helping people to reconnect to themselves so that they can better connect to their horses. So I work on giving people tools to really work on their mindset and improve self-awareness and confidence, but also give them the tools to better understand their horses, how their horses function, how they can help them learn, so that you can just take your partnership to new levels.
Brilliant. And so how did you come to this in the first place?
Well, I'll try and give you a condensed version, but basically, I got into horses when I was around 17, so I was kind of a late starter in the horse world. Absolutely loved horses all my life, but yeah, started at 17, and then did the usual, went through like the British Horse Society stages and all of that, and decided that I wanted to be just do what everyone else did, so be a groom and work for eventers and get my instructor certificate and all of that stuff. But I realized pretty quickly that I wasn't quite fitting into that world. So I ended up getting into Western riding and Western horses and natural horsemanship. And that all fit with me a lot better. I was picking things up quicker. It just all really resonated with me. So I kind of went on a bit of a journey with that, and then kind of switched into wanting to be a coach, wanting to compete in the Western world, train horses. And that took me on a whole other journey for 10, 15 years, which makes me feel quite old, where I worked for a long time in the UK, then went around the world with this aim to be a horse for all these different trainers in different parts of the world, was to be the best horse trainer that I could be and really help people with their horses. And then I got back to the UK just before COVID hit, and still had that intention. Wanted to, launch my business and do all this stuff and get out coaching and doing clinics. And obviously that didn't happen because COVID happened, lockdown happened. And it was around then I started working with a friend training horses. I actually started working on my own mindset, because in trying to launch my own business, look, it's tough and it comes with so much. It really shows up areas where you're not confident, or areas where you're really worried about what other people are thinking, or it really exposes a lot. And for me, I ended up taking this deep dive during that time into my own mindset and self-development. And I ended up going for hypnotherapy for a couple of different things, and that blew my mind. It blew my mind how effective it was, and just how powerful the mind is. And I noticed through doing all of that work on myself, how my horsemanship was changing and how my confidence was really growing and self-belief as well, which is really what I needed with the business. And anyway, because of all that, I then started to inject bits of that into my teaching. I was always quite passionate about helping people with confidence as I was teaching anyway. But that really started to grow. And then I started to develop an online program from that, and I studied to be a qualified hypnotherapist. I studied NLP as well, and EFT. Yeah, and it all kind of just kept growing. And the more I learned about all of that, the more I couldn't unsee like the possibilities for people when they work on their mindset. Um, and so yeah, it's just kind of grown and grown, and now it's my main thing. So I still coach in person and do like Western riding, liberty work, and things like that. But my my main passion is helping people to um, sort out their mindset, really, so that they can truly connect to their horses on a whole different level.
Yeah. So you're like thinking back there, you went originally to work on your mindset and your kind of confidence issues for the business, and then you actually saw that transfer into your riding and how you worked with horses.
Mm, yeah, yeah, and I learned so much about myself as well in that process, and I realized how much like throughout my career with horses, um, like how a lot of the confidence that I did have, I built up from working at different places, actually was quite fragile. So I started out with horses, always feeling like I was behind because everyone else, that I worked with or spent time with has been doing it since they were a baby, or that. And I'm there like, oh god, I didn't start till I was 17. I always felt behind, so I always kind of lacked confidence because of that. And then once I started Western, all of that built up. But then I noticed, like, if I worked for a different style of person, if they spoke to me in a certain way, or had different views of on training or things, I would straight away think, oh well, I'm wrong then, and I'm not very good, and that I straight away would make it about me, and that actually I'm not very good, and my confidence would crumble again. So it was on very like fragile foundations, the confidence that I did have. And yeah, launching my own business really exposed all of that. And yeah, that's how I really got into it all.
Yeah, that's really, really interesting. And it's funny you say that because I have heard a lot of people who maybe have come to horse later in life. They do say that they feel like they're behind, but then the reality is probably people who have been in horses for a long time are like, how are they so good so quickly?
Mm.
I think there's always some way of putting ourselves down.
Yeah.
But
Oh, yeah.
one thing I was thinking, I want to stick with the Western for a minute because
Mm.
over here, I think there's very few, if any, Western, because obviously Ireland's such a small country. Could you explain what Western riding is or what it entails for people maybe who don't understand it, and maybe even like what's the community like over in the UK?
Yeah. Okay. So Western riding is comes from the cowboy style, so that cowboy way of riding. So you have completely different tack. You don't have to have the tack, by the way, but obviously it helps. So you have the Western saddle, so the saddles are bigger, because they're built to be on a ranch and do a day's work on a ranch usually. So they have the horn on them. It depends as well, because there's different disciplines in Western, so you do get different saddles for different disciplines. But you know they are all along the same lines, where they're a bit bigger, they're a lot more comfortable. You have longer stirrups, and yeah, you have the horn in front of you, so you feel quite secure in the saddles. They're quite nice, actually. Oh, they're very heavy though. Bridles, you have, if you are like, so I don't know, if your horse is quote unquote a finished horse, they will usually be in a bridle that has a shanked bit, so you'll ride one-handed, so you'll neck rein. So the style of riding is different in that a lot of the time you will have very loose rein. You will ride one-handed, and a lot of the aids come off your voice, and your seat, and the steering will be, your legs and neck reining. Um, a lot of the time as well, all you'll have to do to ask your horse to stop is to say whoa, and they'll stop. The horses are really, really, most of the time, very well trained. A lot of the horses that you'll find in the Western world are quarter horses, and I love quarter horses. So they're a lot smaller. They're pretty stocky, they're pretty hardy, they're very trainable. Usually, depending on the discipline that they're in and how they've been bred, they'll be a lot quieter as well. Although there are some disciplines nowadays where you'll get a hotter quarter horse for, like, say, cutting and moving cows and things.
Would they be a little similar, like, in build to cobs, or would they be more slimline?
More slimline. So yeah, you again, it depends. It's so funny with quarter horses because there's so many disciplines within Western now. So I could say to you, generally they're quite small, but you do get bigger quarter horses that are used for disciplines such as, so there's without getting too complicated with it all. So you have reining, which is what I used to compete in, which I absolutely loved. So reining is where originally it was based on some maneuvers that you would have to do on the ranch. It's basically you're presented with a pattern, a reining pattern, which is pretty much like a dressage test type thing. So you have a number of maneuvers to complete, and you're judged on the horse being willingly guided throughout. So the horse needs to look happy, and you basically are leaving it alone. You've got your hand out in front of you, cruising around. So you'll do things like you'll lope. So lope is basically like a slower canter. So you'll have your slower lope, you'll have like a fast, more extended lope. So you do small, slow circles, big, fast circles, lead changes, which might be fast or slow, depending on the pattern. Fast ones are always a lot of fun. You have sliding stops. So you run down the middle and you say whoa to your horse, and your horse slides to a stop. So they have special shoes on for that. Backups, spin as well. Spins are really cool. I'd invite everyone, if you haven't seen reining before, to look it up on YouTube, because it is so much fun. I love
It's like dressage, but a bit more crack.
Oh yeah, it's so fun. I ended up, I'm digressing a little bit, but I ended up working at a really high level, like top level barn in Switzerland, with reining. I was grooming there. I wasn't competing or anything. But it actually did. I have to say, at that level, it did put me off a little bit, because I was exposed to how much pressure younger horses are put under with this work, because it is a lot on their bodies, this stuff. So yeah, that was kind of sad, because I loved it so much, and then I was like, oh no, at this level, actually, there's some questionable things that happen in training. But that's one discipline. A lot of fun, really cool to watch. There's a lot of money in it in America, and in Europe, actually. So those horses, the reining horses, do tend to be a little bit more kind of like switched on. But then you've got cutting, and the horses for that are even more like, whoa, because they have to focus on and remove cows from like a little herd, and do some other maneuvers as well. I'm not an expert on this because I haven't shown in it, but that's another really cool one that I recommend looking up, because most of the time in that, the horse, you just kind of set the horse on the cow that you want, and the horse will do the maneuvers. And there's some really cool videos of, like, the rider will take the bridle off and the horse is still like diving around after the cow. It's very cool. So they're your smaller quarter horses. Then you can get bigger quarter horses that tend to do other disciplines that I'm not really into because they're a bit slow. So you have pleasure riding, which is where you get judged on basically how pleasurable your horse looks to ride. So that's where everyone goes in around on a ring, and that you'll get asked to do different maneuvers, but it's very slow. There's lots of people wear sparkly outfits for that. But those horses tend to be a little bigger. I think they're bred with a little more kind of thoroughbred in them, so they're a bit bigger and longer. And they do other things like trail, which is a class where you have lots of different obstacles you have to work through. But again, they have that slower movement through everything. What's the other thing? Oh, horsemanship. Horsemanship's quite cool. So that's where you are given a pattern again, and you have to complete a number of maneuvers, and you're judged on you and how you ride the pattern and how you handle your horse through the patterns and how accurate you are. Things. And the other part of the question, how is the community in the UK? So it's quite small. There's a lot of people that haven't even heard, that we do it in the UK. It's like not even thought about, although I think it is growing. The trouble with it is in the UK is that it's quite hard to get into the community because quarter horses are incredibly expensive over here. They are, a lot of them are either specially bred or they're imported from the US or Europe. But not only that, the tack and everything is so pricey. And then you've got, if you do want to compete, again, it's really expensive. So yeah, it's really difficult to access, which is really sad because it's such a fun discipline. You can now, there's this has always been here, but there's a organization called WES, the Western Equestrian Society. So you can compete with them, you can go to clinics with them, and you don't have to have a quarter horse. So you can have any, you can have a cob, you can have a pony, whatever you want. And they run like competitions and clinics and things in the UK. So that's a cool organization if you did want to get into it but don't have a quarter horse. But yeah, it's sadly it's not as accessible as I wish it could be, because it's so much fun.
It's really interesting hearing all those different variations of it, because I think most people have heard of Western riding, but I think normally all you'd see is barrel racing.
Oh yeah, I didn't even mention it because that's not my world at all. But yeah,
but you kind of like that, and maybe the odd competition where you see them, maybe like what you're saying with the cutting. Didn't realize there's so much to it, and it's fascinating hearing about it and learning about it as well.
Yeah.
I see what you're saying with the quarter horse as well being really expensive. Are they coming in trained as well?
If you want to import a trained quarter horse from America, you're looking at tens of thousands of dollars. Yeah. It's insane. And the thing is now, like, you can buy a baby, but if you get one that's got any kind of decent bloodlines, then you're looking at tens of thousands for a little, like a yearling or 2-year-old that hasn't done anything yet. So yeah, it's so annoying because in the US, they've got quarter horses coming out their ears, and Canada, quarter horses coming out their ears, and you can pick, if you just want an average quarter horse, then you can pick them up pretty cheaply. But in the US, they pay thousands and thousands for cobs, so it's crazy because cobs are 10 a penny over here. So yeah, it's funny how that works. I think we need to do some kind of exchange scheme.
Yeah. Cob for a quarter horse.
yeah, that'd be great. I'd love it.
And the tack as well, like, you're saying that's quite expensive. Is there, like, you're gonna have to go to a specialized place as well, aren't you? Or is there, I suppose, tack shops that are building both? More so they're going to stick to the eventing type stuff, aren't they?
Yeah, so with the tack, you can pick up, like, bridles and bits and things aren't so terrible to import from places. And there are some, like, buy and sell groups on Facebook and things where people in the community will, buy and sell things, which is good. But saddles are a pain. There's a couple of people that drive around the UK that know Western tack and how to fit it. And that's pretty much it. And they might have saddles from other people that they'll buy and sell, and they'll fit to your horse, or they'll import saddles in. So again, that comes with that price tag. It's so annoying.
I'm just thinking back as well, as you kind of started so late to the horse like world, basically. Do you think that you were drawn to Western because there's more likely to be people who've been doing it for less time than eventing or dressage? Because a lot of them they start, like you said, they're born on the saddle basically. Whereas if someone's starting Western, even if they're horse riding since they're like a child, they have not been doing Western since they were 5 or 6. It's very unlikely.
Yeah, no, actually, how that happened was, so when I was 19 and 20, I did 2 summers working at a camp in America. So I worked in North Carolina. And at that camp, we spent all day long doing trail riding with the kids, and we used like quarter horses and Appaloosas that were all so old they were like dinosaurs, bless them. But they were in Western tack. Was I riding Western? No, I was not. I was absolutely winging it, but I was in Western tack. And I ended up working at this Western place and getting into Western because I'd gotten to the point, I think I was around 21, and I'd had it basically with horses, not so much them themselves, but more like the industry at that age. I'd been really, really trying to make it work with the BHS stuff, with becoming some kind of good horse person, and being an instructor and all of it. And it just wasn't fitting. And I'd gotten to this point where I kept falling off. I kept having these accidents happen. I kept just having my confidence knocked. And then I got in my head, and then it kept happening even more, which I realise now but didn't know then. Sorry, my dog's growling. And I got to the point where I just wanted to give up. And yes, my confidence was completely shot at this point. And I just had enough. And I had gotten to the point where I was like, do you know what? I think I'm just going to give up horses. And at the time, I was a working pupil for an eventing lady in Gloucestershire. And I moved back home up to Nottinghamshire, and I saw this ad for this place at this Western yard. And suddenly I thought, well, I've kind of done it a bit before. It might be fun to do something different. And that's how I ended up doing it, really. But it was funny because at the job interview, I remember saying, oh, do you do barrel racing? Because same thing, that's all you ever hear of in the Western world is barrel racing. And they were like, oh, no, we don't do barrel racing.
No, something.
All right, then. Sorry. But yeah, that's how I ended up there. But funny saying that, really, because barrel racing is actually something that is growing in the UK. It's becoming quite popular. It's not something I'm involved with. I don't do it. It's not for me. But I know that there is a lot of growing interest in it because I think people enjoy it, and there's people doing it on cobs and ponies and all kinds of things. So, and I think actually that is a bit more accessible than anything else. So,
yeah. It's interesting the way you're saying. She's like, oh no, we don't do that. Do you? I know you've probably seen this when working in the equestrian world. There's a lot that can be almost not. I don't want to say animosity, but almost like between the different like disciplines. So like dressage riders don't hang out with show jumpers don't and it's really weird. Do they get that in Western with the different disciplines, or are they more of a community, for want of a better description?
I think when I first got into the community in the UK, I thought that yes, everyone was a bit more, I thought, oh yeah, everyone loves each other. And then as I got into it, I discovered that actually it's just as bad as everywhere else. Yeah, it's probably a little bit worse actually because the community is so small. Okay. And it's a shame because I do find that, yeah, because it's a small community, a lot of the trainers almost like compete against each other a little bit, which is a shame. I found that when I worked in the US and in Canada, the trainers were all a lot more supportive of each other, which they really aren't in the UK. It's very controversial of me to say, but it's true. And it's a shame because I think if people supported each other a bit more, actually, you make the place a nice place to be, and that helps to grow things.
Yeah, no, I was just interested here because is that I see you nodding as I was saying that, like like it's the same in in the the Westerns call it English riding, don't they?
Yeah.
In that kind of side of things, it's mad like that. Like you want everyone to see the sport as much as possible and get people involved, and the more people promoting each other, the more people will be involved.
Yeah.
It's kind of sad to see that it's kind of, well, yeah, it is. It's sad to see that it's like that and that as well, because that community as well. I don't know, maybe it's just the tack and stuff. It just looks so more casual and more like, at least,
Yeah.
like, you don't have to be completely dressed up
Yeah.
in white jods in here. I know they're still dressing up for it, but it looks more
Yeah.
welcome, I think.
And I think it appeals to a lot more men as well because of that, because they don't have to wear jumpers, they can wear jeans. And with Yellowstone being so trendy at the minute, and everyone's loving Yellowstone, that I mean, I don't know about, I'm not involved with any Western riding schools anymore, but I would be interested to know if their numbers have gone up now because
Mhm.
of Yellowstone, because I know that, for instance, like Ariat are sending over a lot more Western gear now, because in the US and Canada, like Ariat have got some amazing Western gear, like really nice, cowboy boots and jeans and all the rest of it. Really nice clothes that they don't do here. Um, but there is more of that coming over now. There's more, you see more cowboy boots and things now. Same as, country music and things. Like, it's becoming more and more popular because of because of Yellowstone. So that's quite cool. So yeah, I think men like it because of the lack of jumpers and the cowboy yeehaw-ness of it.
It kind of beats the little top hats they used to have in dressage, doesn't
Definitely. Yeah.
it? So let's, okay, go into the mindset things. You were saying there that you're not really in Western yards anymore. So are you working more predominantly with, like, say, your dressage rider, the Western riders? What kind of people are you?
Um, I'm working with everyone really at the minute. So I'm doing like whatever community they come from, whatever discipline people do with the mindset work. I work with anyone. So yeah, it doesn't matter the background. Yeah, I've worked with people that are competing in eventing. There's a lady in Australia that I've just finished working with. She's dressage. So yeah, it doesn't really matter the discipline. When it comes down to the horsemanship side of things, and learning to handle your horse and read your horse, but also learning about yourself and your own confidence and how to build that. Yeah, it doesn't matter the discipline.
Okay. So
Yeah.
do you find as well you're getting not the exact same, but similar mindsets blocks with people in all
Yeah.
disciplines?
Yeah. Yeah, it's a lot of people that are very worried about what other people think, and that's really affecting them, like having other people watching them ride, for instance, feeling like not good enough in lessons or competition, people that have had some kind of accident at some point and it's really knocked their confidence, and it doesn't even need to be recent, it can be a long time ago, and it's affecting them. But I would say probably the biggest things are people struggling with catastrophizing, so just spinning out with worry, and worrying about others and what other people think, and just being completely like stuck because of it.
Yeah, that one's kind of a hard one, because I think it's a really justified worry, because personally now, from what I've heard, I haven't been competing for years, like, but I have heard the industry has become very toxic in that manner. So it's like a completely valid worry to have.
Mm, yeah. Yeah. What do you mean with regards to like the toxicity? Like
There is a
what?
lot of judgment and a lot of, I think, you would have seen, like, we have, say, for instance, like SJI, and I think eventing isn't so bad. I think it's worse maybe in show jumping. I'm
Mm.
sorry for anyone who's going to come for me for saying that. I feel like the eventers are very supportive, because I think they're just a group of lunatics who band together.
Yeah, yeah.
They are the mental ones.
Yeah, yeah.
And possibly dressage as well. I'm not sure about dressage. I haven't really touched in that industry too much, but
Mm,
it is a lot smaller, so it's easier to be, and I've seen over the years, it's more becoming about what you're wearing, what your horse
Oh,
is like, that kind of stuff. Whereas
yeah,
before you'd rock up to an event, you could have a call, you could have something and no one would care. But now
yeah,
more like, children are on these like fucking expensive ass ponies and you're like, lads, you could have just had the 20-year-old, you know what I mean? Like a lot of
yeah,
people grew up on these like ponies being passed down generations. I think it's changed a lot in that sense.
yeah. Oh, that's interesting. It's interesting you say that because, yeah, because I'm not in that world.
Mm.
I thought you were gonna say something about like from the horsemanship side of things, because I know that so the stuff that comes up in my feeds and things, because of the kind of world I'm in, is more about judgment of how people are handling their horses, or because another thing that comes up a lot for clients that I work with is them being paralyzed because they don't know how to be with their horses anymore,
Mhm.
because there was so much, and I guess there still is now, like polarization of people saying you need to ask your horse's permission to do this and this, and if they don't want to be ridden, then you're cruel if you ride them. And then at the other end, you've got the people that are just like, just bash it up. So
The
everyone's
two
kind of stuck.
extremes, like,
Yeah, they're stuck in the middle and they don't know what to do for the best. They just don't do anything. Yeah, it's insane.
there's definitely a lot of that as well. Like you will hear, or like I feel like that happens more online. Do you know what I
Yeah,
mean?
yeah.
People are like, you put up a video and oh yeah,
Keyboards.
like I've put up a joke video on numerous occasions, and what I realized recently is I repost it now and I deliberately don't put in that it's a joke, but it's like practicing rise and trot at home, and I'm literally standing up and down in a chair to a Venga Boys song, the up and down one, right?
Oh yeah, yeah.
The people are like, you shouldn't be doing it that way. You shouldn't be da 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 da. And I'm like, it's a fucking chair. Your hands are too high. You're standing wrong. And I'm like, okay, so tell me, how do I do that out of a chair? But it's great for
Awesome.
engagement. So I literally just deliberately do not say it's a joke.
Yeah, yeah.
Surely it should be that obvious. Nobody rises to the beat of up and down.
Yeah, it's crazy. Yeah, and that's a whole other thing. It came up actually. I taught a like a confidence workshop for some people in an in-person thing after a clinic I'd done, and the topic of social media came up. Because I was saying, I was trying to be all positive, and I was like, yeah, so you can use social media really positively, and you can use it to inspire you. So if you have goals and you want to show like your subconscious mind that this is possible for you, you've got to seek out things to show you that it's possible. If you haven't done it before, if you can show your subconscious that, look, this is possible for other people, so I can do it too, it's a really great way of giving you motivation, helping you get there. So I'm saying, oh yeah, so go on Instagram and find these people that inspire you, and so you can give yourself that inspiration. You can even speak to these people to see how you got there, and da 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 da. And anyway, this lady pipes up and says, I actually think social media is really toxic. It really brings me down. I find the total opposite. And people are, it gives you unrealistic expectations and da 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 da. And I was like, oh, and so I had to kind of explain that actually, if you use social media intentionally, so if you go on it and you have the intention to be inspired, and you do things like you have to be really, really intentional. Set a timer on your phone for 3 minutes. I am specifically looking for this hashtag, for this discipline, to see these people doing this thing, to inspire myself. Do not have the discipline to not get sucked down rabbit holes. It's really hard though, isn't it?
Oh yeah, yeah.
To not look in the comments, to not look at people that don't inspire you. If you do it that way, you can. Yes, social media can be so toxic. Yes, there are people on there that are only posting the best bits and not the rubbish bits, and that's not real life. But you know this, so don't get sucked in by it. So yeah, I think social media can play a big part in either really bringing you down or lifting you up if you are mindful about how you use it.
I I
Um,
think yeah, what you're saying there, but also, when you see somebody who's posting the best bits or whatever, like, they you say for instance, you see someone rider and you're like, "Oh god, I could never do that." And you're like, "Okay, but for a second, how long has this person been with that horse and doing that work?" And then if you actually take, like I said, be mindful, think about it, and you're like, "Okay, well, I've had that horse 8 years, they've been riding 4 times a week. They literally have, this is why they're at that level." Then you're kind of going,
yeah,
"Okay, right, well, I've had my horse 6 months.
yeah,
It's a 4-year-old. Of course it doesn't know how to do that." Like,
yeah, yeah. And
um,
that, yeah, and that's why as well, like I explain to people, if especially if I'm doing any kind of goal setting work, like you don't just like success and meeting your goals doesn't just happen, and it hasn't just happened for those people that you're following on social media. Like you have to have a plan to get there. So it's all right setting a goal and having this dream, but unless you make a plan and you break it down and you work backwards from that goal, it's not going to happen. But guess what? If you do break it down, if you do make a plan, if you do research how are you going to get there? How much time do you need to put in? Where do you need to go? Who do you need to speak to? You'll make it happen. And that's something that I really try and get across to people is so many people will have like these dreams and then think, oh yeah, but I'm not going to be able to do that. And it just stays there floating as something you'd like to do, but it isn't going to happen. But if you actually research it, if you actually make a plan, step by step, and they might be tiny little steps, you will get there. And so I try to like teach people a bit of positivity with that and having an open mind. And if you do put in the work and you do make a plan, you can make some crazy things happen that you wouldn't have thought possible.
do you get a lot of resistance from them when you kind of try to get them to plan?
Sometimes,
Mm.
yeah. And usually that resistance is coming from a place of insecurity and that belief that I can't do it, I'm not good enough. So then we have to like dive deeper and kind of pare back a little bit and work on that, and then come back to um, taking those steps. But yeah, it's, and I do say that as well. Like at the beginning of working with people, I'll say that, there might be times where I'm telling you something and you're sat there thinking, this is a load of rubbish. Or it might even trigger you a little bit where you kind of get a bit annoyed and you think, oh, and if that happens, that's a good thing because it's showing up, it's bringing up emotions that actually we need to look at and work on because it brings up those limiting beliefs of, yeah, I can't do that. That's not possible for me. Like, but actually, if you go back and work on, well, why do you think that? Why do you think that's not possible for you? Like, where did that come from? It's so interesting. This is why I love it so much because yeah, we're so complex.
No, it's fascinating.
Yeah.
Um, so when someone comes to you, do you have like a specific process you go with them first, or does it kind of depend person to person?
It depends person to person. Usually I try and find out what's going on, what they're struggling with, and where they'd like to be. So what is it that they're stuck in right now? How are they feeling? Where do they think that's come from? And then I'll find out like what do you want to be by the end of our time working together? Who do you want to be? What do you want to be able to do? And what do you want to be able to have by the time we finish working together? And a really important one, how do you want to feel by the end of our time working together? And usually that will like show up a few things that maybe we need to look at. And then generally, if it's purely mindset that we're working on and we're doing hypnotherapy and NLP and things, I've got like a load of different tools in my toolbox that I'll bring out depending on what comes up, and we'll work on different things. And I tend to throw a lot of different things at it through different sessions because some people are really, really receptive and they'll just have one session and they'll just be like, bang, sorted. Other people will have some more complex things going on, and it will take a little bit of this, a little bit of that, and that will help them move through things because some techniques will work better than others. So yeah, I've got a whole host of things that I like to use, and it's all crazy stuff. Like with the NLP in particular, it always blows my mind how that works, and how the mind works. And then I'll give people nervous system regulation tools as well, because I think that's really, really important to have as a toolkit for life. And I wish they would teach it in schools and things, because I think the world would be a different place if we learned this as children.
Yeah.
There's no doubt the world would be a different place.
Just out of interest, for anyone who doesn't know, what is NLP?
Neuro-linguistic programming. So I do NLP and also EFT, which is emotional freedom technique. So the neuro-linguistic programming is, I always just describe it, it's just weird. You just so it's like the way your brain holds information, and through using different language and different techniques, I can help you change limiting beliefs, habits, and things, through that. And then I'll use hypnotherapy as well to help with the reprogramming and integrating of new information and new ways of thinking. And then the EFT comes in, so that's the tapping on different points. So I find EFT is really good for releasing emotions, for helping to regulate as well. And then depending on like how woo you are, it's really good energetically as well, because it works on the meridian lines in your body, so it helps to move any energetic blockages you have. But it's a really good way of like helping, because you're saying positive affirmations and you're kind of helping get rid of limiting beliefs. So that's really good. So I kind of mix all that into a nice soup of goodness. Depending on each client.
No, I love hearing about it. Like I would know about like neuro linguistic programming, EFT not so much, but like I love as well the passion as you speak about it, and like because you can see that like you've obviously like these things help people, and you're passionate about that, and you're like it sounds like you're remembering like these really good like instances with people. Do you find, say for instance, so you were talking about woo, because I know like people who talk about these things that do work, but like definitely there's a bit of people who are like that's a bit woo woo.
Yeah.
Do you think, because you're talking about working with people from like kind of all over the world, there's people from certain countries who are more receptive to stuff than other countries?
Yeah. I think so. I think Americans are a lot more kind of open to anything, depending on where in America they're from.
Okay.
But mostly a bit more kind of open and receptive. British, or in English, typically a little more cynical. But I think I kind of, I would say mostly I do draw in clients. I think because of the way I speak on social media and things, I do tend to draw in clients that are a little more open to things because of all the stuff I bang on about. So yeah, although I just have to, I sprinkle in the woo here and there. I kind of read the person, like when
Try
I
to come it in.
and kind of drop it in, and then it's quite funny because sometimes you will find people that you think are really cynical, and actually you get talking, and they'll say something. I'll think, wow, blimey, that's very woo, and it will start coming out. So I think there's a bit of woo in all of us. I think we're all just, it's just waiting to come out. So I just have to tease it out.
I know the reason I was asking is I think in relation to that kind of stuff, the Irish are very similar in that sense. Irish and like English people and British people, mentality wise, can be very similar.
Yeah.
But there is definitely like it's growing, or maybe it's just who I follow on social media. You know, that's, but I think I don't know if it's the same as well in the UK, but the Irish equestrian community are very traditional, very like just they can do it, push through. If it's tough, it's tough. It's supposed to be tough. Like, you know, there's a lot of farming crossover. So it's interesting because, you know, like to say something like that to some of the Irish horse breeders over there, and they'd be looking at you like you've got 20 heads, like.
Yeah, definitely. And that is kind of that's my problem is communicating to people that are kind of like stuck in older ways of thinking. I do think there are more shifts happening now, but on the whole, yeah, people are kind of stuck in one way of thinking, and I can see how much this stuff would help them and would help them in their whole lives, but also mainly with their horses. So I need to keep banging the drum, but also communicate it in such a way that it inspires people and they are curious. One thing that I am very careful of on social media, because it really annoys me from other people, is when there is that alienation of people, and this is the way you do it, this is the only way you should do it, and if you don't do it like this, then you're wrong, or you're cruel, or this is abuse, or blah 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 blah. So I try very, very hard with how I post to make it inspirational or to spark curiosity, and not to be like, this is the only way you should do this, and if you don't, this is wrong, and blah blah blah. So
That's what gets the most views.
pardon?
That's the stuff that gets the most views.
I know. That's probably where I'm going wrong, isn't it? I should be a bit more. You're wrong, everyone.
Doing like going at it on a balanced view, which is what it should be. But everyone wants the extremes. They want to be told this is it, or they want to argue that you're wrong.
Yeah. Maybe that's where I'm going wrong. But
the content's long.
Yeah. But yeah, I'm trying to inspire, because I do find that if I went into, I don't know, like some lessons that I've taught, and I can clearly see that actually this person's problem really is that they're not confident and they're terrified, and so they're not able to communicate properly and effectively to their horse and get whatever it is they want to do, get it done. And I want to say to them, look, just get off the horse and let's just go and do some breath work for a minute, or let's go and do some hypnotherapy, for God's sake. And this will help. Because people, I think there's a lot of shame attached to not having confidence as well. Mm-hmm. And I think there's a lot of shame attached to, because we are so gung-ho and like, just get on with it, just go and jump that jump, just do. When you can't because you're scared, there's shame attached to that because of what other people are going to think. So I do think that keeps people stuck, because they don't want to admit that actually, they're not confident and they are scared and they wish they could do it, but they can't, because they feel like they should just push through. So I think that comes from a place of that as well on social media. I keep meaning to do a post about that, actually. You just reminded me.
You keep up and go watching your channels now for the next few days.
Yeah.
Have you, now obviously without going into detail or say names or anything, have you a story about a client that you just saw a massive change from after working through their mindset? One that really sticks out to you?
Yeah, there's a few. I think the best ones are the ones where I speak to them and I think, oh, I'm not sure that, not that I'm not sure if I can help them, but they come with a lot of baggage and a lot of, I've got this going on and this. And I had a lady who had got a new horse. She was having a lot of health problems. She was having health problems. So that was kind of holding her back in her riding. She was getting upset. She had this new horse that she wanted to be out competing on. But she was scared and she was nervous whenever she went to do anything. And she was also experiencing problems on the yard, with bits of bullying and people saying horrible things. So there's a whole host of things going on. And we worked together inside a program that I do, the Enlightened Equestrian program, which is a 12-week thing where we look at your mindset and we also work through the horse as well. So teach you to better understand your horse, their body language, their nervous system, groundwork, and that was really, really cool, because at the beginning there was so much going on and I was thinking, oh, we have so much to work on. And a lot of these people, when they come to me with the program as well, they're about ready to give up with their horse. And we got to the end of the program and she's now out competing regularly and winning classes. She's able to, because these people on the yard are still the same, you know, they're still saying things, they're still there, but she's able to just put it to the side and not give a shit about anything they say. And she's out hacking a horse, cantering. It's always a big one for people, is they want to be able to canter their horse out in the open. That's one that comes up a lot. Yeah. And by the end of it, they always are. They'll send me videos out cantering, and it's great. So that was a really cool one, because with that one, that she had so much going on everywhere that, like, at the beginning, I was like a little. I knew I'd be able to help, but I was thinking, this is going to be a lot. But yeah, over that course of time working together, each week she was coming to me and saying, I can't believe how different I feel. I can't believe that I've been and gone and done this. And yeah, and there was another lady in America. She was about ready to sell her horses. She was done. She had big warm bloods, and she just had a baby. So she was kind of struggling with getting in that routine with her new baby. She's a farrier as well. So she's she's having the baby, she's doing her business, she's got these warm bloods. She wanted to, well, she is now doing like low level eventing, happily, and out enjoying her horses again. And she's got self-care going on. She's got routines. And at the beginning, yeah, she was about done, about ready to sell them, thought that she'd like to compete, but didn't think it was going to happen. And sure enough, she's sending me videos, loving life. And it's so cool when people, because I've been there, I've been at that point where I was ready to give up. I was done. And you can turn it around. And it's very cool to see it happen. And every time it happens, and every time people have those changes, it's always just the best feeling for me.
I also know you've helped them as well, like.
Yeah, because we all deserve to enjoy our horses. We all go into it with such passion, don't we, as horse people? And it's often from being, tiny, from being a little person that watches Black Beauty or whatever, and just
going, yeah, I love Black Beauty.
yeah, and you have that love, and it's always just such a shame, I think, when you lose that magic. So helping people to find it again is, yeah, I love it.
Yeah, I love that, finding that magic. It's best way of describing it, I think. And I think there is something like, yeah, there's something magical about horses, isn't it? Like, even though they're idiots, there's something.
Yeah. No doubt.
Trying to explain that to someone who's not a horse person is hilarious. Like, oh yeah, he's brilliant, but he's an absolute dope, like, but and people would be like, wait, what? I'm not getting rid of him, he's lovely. Like,
yeah, absolute turd, but I do love him.
It's my turd.
Yeah.
I think that is pretty much everything I have to ask you, but I do have one question that I ask people at the end of every podcast, right? And that is, what is the best advice you've ever been given?
Oof.
I love this one. I always get this reaction.
Yeah, best advice I've ever been given. Oh, trust your training. Trust in your training. So that was a friend of mine in Canada. Her husband will always say that to her. Like, she does a lot of movie work, and she was performing a lot as well, doing things with her horses. And whenever she would get nervous, he'd always say to her, just trust in your training. And I always thought that's so cool. Like, just forget everything else and just trust in all the work that you've put in, whether that's in yourself, whether that's in your horse. Trust in that and go do your thing. That
is brilliant. I like that.
Yeah, it's cool.
So simple and just like, yeah, it's so just before we go as well, can you tell everybody where they can find you?
Yes. So, a bit confusing because I've got a few different names going on, but you can find me on Instagram at the Horsemanship and Mindset Coach. So that's that one. On Facebook, it's Idlewild Horsemanship and Mindset Coaching. And my website is www.idlewildhorsemanship.com. And there's a podcast as well, but I am changing it. So at the moment, the podcast, you can find it on Spotify. It's the Enlightened Equestrian Podcast. But I am going through a bit of a shift and a change with that. So if you want to catch up on all the old episodes, please do. And then I'm going to be dropping a link in there very soon with a bit of a relaunch of the podcast too. And you're going to come on it.
Yes. Oh yeah, absolutely. I'm happy. I'm buzzing to it. I love being on the other side. It's so like, oh.
Yeah, cool. We'll organise that.
Brilliant. And for anyone looking to follow me, you can find me on Instagram and TikTok. So on Instagram, it's at Strong the Saddle with an underscore at the end because someone got there first, basically. On TikTok, I got there first, so it's just at Strong the Saddle. And then my website is www.chrissyhawkins.com. So yeah, just want to say thanks again for joining us today, Kim.
Excellent. Thank you for having me. It's been a joy.
I really do appreciate everybody who listens to this podcast. So if you please could help me with the algorithm and leave a review on Apple Podcasts or Spotify. And even, if you want to reach out and suggest topics for me, I'd be delighted to hear from you. Drop me a DM on Instagram or TikTok. And thanks again for listening.